All right, welcome to our lecture for Game Design 1. It's Thursday, September 4th. Before we jump into the topic for today, I wanted to real quick go over a couple of things related to our last assignments, some of the takeaways from those, and then just talk a little bit about um, some general topics or things to remember as we're working through assignments and your project. First things first. Um, when you're putting your devlog on itch, it's fine. It is okay to put that um, on the discussion or front page, or excuse me, the description page. But ideally, I'd want those to be in the devlog section. So when you bring up itch on your project page, go to devlogs, create a new one, and post it there. So if you currently have it under description for your project, preferably you would put an actual description of your entire project there, and then have updates in your devlog section. So I think that's the approach you want to take. So go ahead and make that change if you haven't already. And then one of the next things I wanted to mention is as you're working on your actual game project for your stealth game, just remember to your player start is where the player is going to actually begin the game or start the level. So when you package the game, just want to keep that in mind. Have your players start where you actually want them to start the experience, right? All right. And the next thing we have here, so obviously this is self-explanatory, but just remember to playtest your own experience, your own game. Um, in some cases, you might make a change and then package and forget to verify or validate that change is actually going to be working. Um, and so you just want to make sure that the experience is working at a bare minimum, right? You want to be able to make sure that where you're putting your obstacles and your assets and actors and everything is actually going to work for the flow of the game. You don't want the game to be broken just because something was misplaced or the wrong size, so your character couldn't fit through, or there was no collisions or the incorrect collisions or something like that. So just keep that in mind as you're building your project. All right, and then of course, and we kind of talked about this in class already, but make sure you have a mouse. Um, it's pretty tough to work off a laptop and using the trackpad. I've tried that in the past, and it's kind of a nightmare to deal with, especially when you're working in blueprints. So I recommend make sure you have a mouse or bring a mouse to class so that as we're working through things, you can follow along efficiently. All right, so let's talk a little bit about our 1.2 assignment. Um, so the mini game that we worked on and the devlog post. Um, Pretty great submissions there. Just I pulled out a couple of takeaways just as I was working through things. Um, and then of course, so if you have questions on that assignment or about any of the assignments, make sure to just post that. You can post that on the Discord channel in either the general or the questions and help. It If it's something that might be useful for everyone, I would post it there so that everyone can discuss and see what the answer is. So post it there. But first things, so um, as you're placing your assets and designing your level, right? So let me preface this by saying that it was a mini game. The assignment was just to test and refamiliarize yourself with Unreal Engine, and to kind of show me where you're currently at, so I can gauge, where we need to focus on throughout the semester. Um, so most of these things are, take it with a grain of salt. Just these are things you want to keep in mind, but it's not necessarily that they were incorrect in the project. Just more general things to account for as you move forward. So being intentional about your asset placement as you're designing your level, right? You're gonna block out, but you'll probably have a design drawn out first. So keep in mind just where you're going to place things, how the obstacles are going to impact the flow of the level and the play, and how the player is going to make it through. Um, this goes back to play testing, right? You need to place things in a way that the obstacle is actually going to block the player if there needs to be one, or if they need to find a pickup or something like that. You want to kind of guide the player through that level. in most cases. So just think about things as you're placing those, and then making sure you're testing where you're placing those to make sure that they're accessible, that it makes sense for the experience that you're creating. And another one that kind of came up, so there was this idea of player fatigue. So as you're playing through, especially if you're creating a challenging experience, you want to think about, is the player going to run out of energy as they're attempting this over and over again? There's multiple ways to relieve that, right? You want to keep the player engaged, and you want them to enjoy the experience, even if it is a challenge. So one thing with the assets we had the checkpoint, right? So that was one big way you could give some relief to the player. So making sure you have a checkpoint between points in your challenge. That way they don't run out of energy or have to start all the way back to the beginning, right? So keep that in mind as you're working. Um, let's see. Okay, yeah. So leading the player. Again, this is like the idea that you want to show the player in one way or another, like what direction that you want them to move in. We're not going to be building an open world game, so most of what we're doing is going to be linear, right? So we have something, that a goal that we want the player to accomplish. We have a direction we want them to move in. So keep that in mind as you're working. In our demo game, right, the Coding One project, we have text everywhere to say, okay, this is a door that's locked. Go get a key. When you're actually playing, like creating an actual game, you're not most likely not going to have that in most cases. Um, you might have some obvious pointers like that, but ideally you want to have a balance between letting the player solve things and create puzzles in your game, and between guiding them in a specific direction. So you'll use your story and your aesthetics the mechanics as well, the rules of your game, to kind of lead the player in the direction you want them to go in. Okay, so yeah, okay, so this goes back to the mechanics and the challenges and obstacles that you're adding into your game. To take all these things, apply them to the stealth game you're going to be creating. So the obstacles you're creating, the pickups you're going to have, are they actually in supporting the underlying theme and experience you're creating? So if you have a magical box in your level or in your environment, for example, but you're creating a spy game, that's going to feel pretty out of place, right? Or if you have a bag of cash in your level, um, but the player can actually use that cash. Obviously, if it fits into the design of the level, the environment, then it makes sense, right? But if it's something that the player can interact with or pick up, but doesn't actually um, relate to the theme or the design of the game, then it might be kind of a red herring for the experience they're having. And another example would be like a key that they could pick up or interact with, but it doesn't serve any purpose in the environment. All right, so let's see, traps and checkpoints. Um, yeah, making traps feel rewarding. So you don't want to cheat, right? You don't want the player to feel like the game is cheating or like working against them. You want it to be challenging for them. You want the puzzles to be enjoyable, but you want it to be rewarding for them. So this goes back to the relief, right? You can provide relief to the player, or you can have additional challenges or levels to that difficulty, or there's different things that you can do to kind of make the challenge or traps rewarding for the player. Um, then, if you look back to a couple of games where the enemy can also be hurt by a trap, for example. So the first run through, the player might lose because they ran into a trap, but on their second playthrough, they might realize that, oh, the enemy can also get hurt here. So it's rewarding for them to go back and use that trap to their advantage then. And then the last takeaway there was, so if you're going to create a rule or a mechanic, or something that might have growing difficulty, I would say this is a recommendation more so than like a rule of thumb, but if you're designing a mechanic like that that can gradually become more and more difficult, I would say you want to start at the most basic form of that, right? You want to introduce the player to this mechanic or this design or rule, and then from there, you know, increase the difficulty as you move forward. One example of this would be Dead Space. So in that game, you get different types of weapons that you can use to to defeat your enemies, right? To defeat the aliens that are attacking you. So you can have like the line cutter. Right? I forget all the weapons in that game, but typically, most of the time, you get introduced to those weapons in a kind of controlled scenario. Um, so you don't have like you're not getting like bombarded by a bunch of enemies at once, and they give you throw a new weapon to you to like figure out how to use it in that like split second, which that can be a fun experience too. But typically, you're going to want to introduce the player to that so they can get familiar with that mechanic or capability or feature, and then push them in and let them have at it. So keep those things in mind as you're working. Again, those were just a couple of takeaways as I was playing through some of the games. So, all right. So assignment 2.1. So our stealth game research. I'm definitely interested in hearing more. Right. If you have more things you want to discuss, feel free to post that on the Discord chat. But I really liked what was coming out of that so far. Looking at the assignment submissions, a lot of good discussion going on there. So a couple of takeaways there. These are really just things that people mentioned, might be interesting to delve into a little more. And this might actually steer our next coming up sessions. But patrolling AI, right? Today we're going to talk about AI, but we're not going to do any patrolling or anything like that. That might be something we delve into in the next couple of sessions. Sound and hearing perception. A lot of games, Splinter Cell, The Last of Us, Metal Gear. So many like stealth games obviously have sound or hearing perception as a mechanic, in addition to like sight, right? So that's a pretty big one. Um, and then if you think of like The Last of Us, you can throw objects to distract your enemy. That's another super common one that was discussed in some of the games that were researched. So and then lastly was like cover systems or using like bushes or light and dark like shadows and things like that to decrease the visibility for the player. Um, so all those were great takeaways, good things I think that came from that or that is coming from the assignments as I've been looking through those. So good stuff. Okay. Before I jump into the topics here, I want to, if you have things you want to discuss after we go through this session, I'm interested in hearing feedback on things you want to see or try to build out that you might be able to utilize in your own games. So a couple of things. We won't go into anything too complex, um, but as time permits, we might do some experimentation and try out a couple of things. So these are just a couple examples. Feel free to post or share some or um, give a couple ideas on what you think might be worth experimenting or trying out. Okay, so with that in mind, um, let's go ahead and jump into just today's session. So today we're going to be talking about, well, we're going to create an enemy AI. It's not, like I said, it's not going to be patrolling, but we're going to set it up so that it chases the player in the environment. So let's go ahead and I already have my project pulled up, but go ahead and pull up your project if you don't have it up already. And just follow along for now. Right now, this is something that I put together to kind of showcase the different types of AI that we might delve into later on if there's time. But um, what I want to show is that, or kind of convey, is that as you're working in Blueprints or in Unreal Engine, or if you move into C++, if you decide to go into more technical stuff, um, everything that we're doing can be done in multiple ways. right? So as we're working on examples, don't take it as like a prescriptive approach. There's multiple ways to design things or to build things out. So as you're designing your game, don't feel like your way is the wrong way. If you have an approach to something, you want to consider that design and play test it and experiment with it, but you know don't think that it has to be done a certain way because you saw it in a tutorial or because that's the way we did it in class, right? Do design it in the way that fits your game, um, or fits the experience you're trying to create. So, all right. So let me go ahead and just simulate. See if we can get our AI moving in here. Okay. So a couple of different things are going on here. And let me zoom in a little bit here. So we have this guy. He's walking kind of slow there, but this is a patrolling AI. So this guy is actually using waypoints in the environment to walk to. Um, so he's there's a couple of points set inside this little inside this room, and it's going to cycle through each of those points. And then over here we have an actual random patrol. So there's not a set path for them to follow, like a spline or a point to go to. The AI's controller is actually determining a random point or location to go to, and then they're wandering to that point. So as you see, it's kind of like sporadic, right? They're just kind of walking a short delay, and then determining the next point and walking to that point. Um, so in your game, it might be worth having multiple types of patrols, right? You might want it to seem a little, you know, um, realistic or lifelike. You want some of the characters or NPCs walking a set path or an actual set patrol, and others just kind of randomly wandering around. Who knows? So, and then over here, so these are the coding one enemies, um, and so this is actually a good place to start because I think in the first or second session we talked about the inheritance hierarchy, right? So it's the inheritance of the different classes inside of Unreal Engine. So we had the U object, and then a bunch of things underneath that, including the actor, right? We had the actor, then we had a pawn, and then we had our character. Um, so these enemies are actually actors, and so actors cannot be possessed by an AI controller, if you remember. And so you kind of have to find a different approach to get them to move around the level. So that's what I did here. I just set up a timeline, I think, and use that to have them move around. So just to show that while in most cases, if you want something complex or that uses perception, um, depending on the game you're designing, you might need to use something else. But it's possible to do things with just an actor. So keep that in mind as you're working. I might show what is going on here later on, but for now, let's jump over here because this is actually what we're going to be doing in class. So this guy, you notice he's just standing there, um, and you see this green cone here. So Unreal Engine has a couple of different methods for perception. Today we're going to use pawn sensing, but I wanted to note that pawn sensing is deprecated for AI perception. Um, So it's still available in Engine. You can still use it, and I would say it's a little more lightweight and probably easier to adopt. But honestly, AI perception isn't too much more complex and offers, I think, more features and capabilities. So it's worth exploring AI perception. But for the sake of this session, I think we'll just stick to pawn sensing just so that we can get an idea on what that looks like. Pretty straightforward to implement. So um, let me possess real quick and jump in here. If it'll let me take control of my character. There we go. Okay. There we go. All right. So this guy's chasing me around, right? This is what we're gonna do today. So we're gonna set up an AI, a character, and we're gonna have him chase our player. There we go. All right. So let's go ahead. here. I think under characters and enemies, I think. Yeah. Okay. So this is where our current enemies are, right? Let's go ahead. Let's create a new folder. You can hit Control Shift N to create a new folder, or right click new folder, and let's call it coding 1 enemies, and then we're just going to move all these in. I'm going to click one, hold down Shift, and then click the next one you want to highlight all of them there. And I'm just going to drag them into this folder here. Select move here, and then I have my show redirectors filter enabled. So I think we talked about this in class, but I didn't get a chance to actually show you what that looks like. So these are the redirectors, right? We want to clean these up, otherwise things will kind of start to get a little messy and broken in our folder structure here. So we can right click here and clean up redirectors. Here we go. Update redirector references. Oh, I guess we need to clean up these guys, not the. Yeah, there we go. And then once it's been cleaned up, you can just delete the old ones. So delete unreferenced redirectors. That's fine. There we go. Now if we jump in here, there are our assets there, or actors. So we're good there. Okay, so in here, do I want to put that in a folder? Yeah, well, let's just create a new blueprint right here in the root here. So right click and then do blueprint class, and let's select character, because we're gonna want the to be able to possess this character, right? We could also use a pawn, but in this case, let's select character, and then let's call it BP. Let's call it enemy AI. Keep it simple for this example. Okay. And then let's go ahead and open this guy up. And if you notice, there's nothing in here, right? All of these things you see over here on the left in our component viewer, these are all things that are inherited from the base class, right? Or the parent class. So if you hit class settings, you can go to see that the parent class is character. We created a BP enemy from a character class. Character class has these components or assets in here, and so we inherited those, and you see them, but we haven't assigned anything to our mesh yet. So let's do that real quick. If you go over here, so we want to set the skeletal mesh asset, and so hit that drop down. Let's just do maybe SKM Quinn. I'll let that load for a sec. There we go. Okay. So there's our mesh. If you notice, it's kind of in the wrong position there. It's a little higher than we want it to be. We want it to fit nicely into our capsule collision. So let's just drag it down. I would say to 90. Drag it down to 90. Yeah, minus 90 for the Z. And then let's just rotate it by 90 degrees as well to face the arrow. There you go. And that's our forward vector. That's our forward direction for the character. So we'll rotate it, and let's just hit compile. Compile and save. One thing, if you want, you can hit the 3 dots here and go to save on compile, and you can change when the blueprint is saved. You can do always. I would recommend doing on success only. If you do always, then if something is broken, it'll still save it, and while that's fine, you might forget that something's broken, and then if you have a bunch of stuff in your blueprints, it'll be kind of difficult to locate. But that being said, if you have this jump to error node, it might make it a little easier. So keep that in mind. Okay, so we have our mesh in here. We want to add, so we talked about AI perception and pawn sensing. Those are both actor components, and so we can add them in our drop down here with the add button. So let's hit add. Let's scroll down. Here's AI perception, and then here is pawn sensing. So we're gonna select pawn sensing, and we'll keep it with the default name. That's fine. But if you notice, you can see the kind of this cone shape, or it looks flat right now because the angle, but that's actually the vision cone, right? For this the sensing. Um, let's actually, yeah, I don't want 90 degrees. So on the right hand side in the details, let's change peripheral vision angle. Let's set it to like, what does 60 look like? Yeah, 60 is not bad. Eh, what does 35 look like? Is that too small? Actually, yeah, I think I like that better. Let's set it to like 35. That's reasonable, I think. You can mess around with these settings as you go through and find what really fits best for you. Um, so like in my case, I think I want the character to be able to sneak up on the side some and not have them be spotted. Um, you kind of want it to cheat in the player's favor in some cases. So in this case, I want them to be able to feel like, oh, I'm super close to this character and or this enemy, and they still haven't seen me. So I'm like a ninja, right? I could sneak around and get up close to them and not be spotted. But yeah, so I'll leave it at 35, and then that's let's leave these other ones as default. Um, we're not going to do hearing. We're just going to do sight. That's pretty far actually. Let me just do like 1500. Yeah, let's set the sight radius to 1500 just to shorten that a little bit. I think that'll make a little more sense. And then let's hit compile. Okay, now we're gonna jump into our event graph. So we have our pawn sensing component and we have our mesh in our actor or in our character VP. Let's so for pawn sensing, we need to be able to do something, right? We need to be able to sense the player or do something when the player is sensed. So for this component, let's just drag. Do we want to do that? Yeah. I don't think. Yeah. Let's go ahead and let's just drag. Where's it at? Yeah. Let's do this. Oh, what am I thinking? Okay. So for our pawn sensing component, I was thinking I want to drag this in here and do a couple of adjustments on event begin play, but let's not do that. Let's just go ahead and so we want to be able to sense the player using an event, right, and do something when that happens or trigger an event when that happens. So if you select pawn sensing on the right hand side in the details, our events are down here. So what we want is on cpawn. So we'll click the plus, and that'll create our event for us. And then, so once we sense the pawn or see the pawn, um, we want to just chase the player, right? We want to move towards them. Um, but let's not connect that directly. Let's do this. Let's create a custom event, and let's do add custom event. So right click, add custom event, and let's call it chase player. Super simple. Let's do that. Okay. So there's a couple of ways we could handle this. We could use like a Boolean value to say like, is the player visible? Or can we see the player right now? And if so, set that to true, and then chase the player. But I think what we want to do, I think what I want to try to do instead is I like the approach of using actor tags, um, just because it eliminates the need to do a cast sometimes. And I mean, you may still have to do a cast, but sometimes you can use an interface instead. You don't have to necessarily use a Boolean value. You can just check if it's the player and then ignore all other actors for this pawn. So I think that's what we will do. Let's do, yeah. yeah, first, okay, let's set that here actually. So we have our pawn. Um, in this case, we don't actually care what the pawn is. All we care that is that it is the player, right? So let's just do right click and do actor has tag. There we go. And then we're gonna set the tag value. Let's set it to player. And then in a sec here, we'll jump over to our character blueprint and make sure that it has that player tag assigned to it. But right now, let's click B, hold on B, and then click, and that'll create a branch node. So this branch node is your kind of like your if else statement, right? So this is a quick way to determine your path, right, or your execution flow. So in this case, if it is the player, if it has that tag, we're going to connect that. Let's connect there. And then, so if it is the player, we want to call that chase player event. So we'll do chase player. Okay. So nothing complex here. We're just gonna check if the actor has that tag. If so, then we'll call this chase player. And then for chase player, all we need to do is we want to tell it to move to the location of that actor, right? So let's do this. Let's do AI move to is what we want. So let's right click. Let's do AI move to. So this node will come in handy quite a bit. If you are, actually, I think you'll probably still use this if you do behavior trees and state trees and that type of stuff as well. But if you're using an AI controller, you can use this call directly in there as well as doing it in your blueprint here. This is just a convenient way to, instead of having to have a controller all the time, you can actually just tell the AI or the character to move to a location. But we'll see, there's one caveat there, and we'll see that here in a sec. But let's go ahead and just connect this here. We need to tell it who the pawn is, right? And so we want to get a reference to ourselves because that's who is instigating or creating this call, I guess. So let's do self. Get a reference to self. That's what we want. So we'll attach that to pawn. And then we're going to ignore destination. But you have two options here. You can give it a destination directly here, or you can tell it to just move to that target actor. And in this case, we know that we just want to move to our target actor. So let's just right click. And we already determined that the actor is the player. So we can just do get player character. And that we'll set it to 0 because there's no other players. So the first player. We'll attach it to target actor. Let's change our acceptance radius. Let's make it like, you don't want him to get right up on us. So let's make it like 50. Let's see what that does for us. In some cases, if this is too small, they'll actually collide with you, and so it might cause the character your player not able to move around or something like that. But you can also check this stop on overlap. That'll actually, as they're moving, that'll keep them from overlapping with an object or stepping in, colliding with an object. So that's another option. Okay, so that's pretty much it right there. So all we're gonna do is, real quick, is check if the actor has this tag. If they do, we'll call chase player, and then we will tell our enemy AI to move to the location of that actor using the get player character. Okay, so let's just hit compile. And let's hit save here. Let's put this here. And I'm going to nuke this guy. Let's remove him from the level. Hit control space to bring up your content browser. And then I'm going to drag our enemy AI into the environment now. Let's just turn him to face. Actually, let's do this. Since you guys don't have this in this level, let's go ahead and just create a level real quick so that we can refresh on how to do that. So stealth game, maps. Let's do it under training facility. And let's do right click and level. And let's call it L underscore, let's call it chasing AI underscore test. This is kind of the naming convention. It's not exact though. So refer back to the naming convention doc to make sure that our naming is correct, and you can adjust it. But that'll work for now. I'm gonna double click that, hit save, save all. So now we have a new blank level. In this case, last time we talked about, we're gonna set up lights in a blank level. This time, let's go ahead and create all the environment lighting. So you'll open up your environment light mixer, and I'm just gonna have it create all of the lights for us. If you don't recall where that's at, go to Window, and then under the level editor section, you can go to Environment Light Mixer. And then I just have mine snapped to the side here. So, all right. So we have our empty level. We need something to stand on. So you can use the modeling mode. So Shift 5. But I think what I'm going to do actually is I'm going to just go to the content browser, go to content, and I'm going to activate the static mesh filter. If you don't have this filter here under filters, you can right click and then go to filters, and you can go to all filters and it'll show everything. But typically that one will be in the common ones here. So just check static mesh and that'll enable it. So let's enable that. And okay, yeah. So we want the SM cube, our static mesh. Let's drag that guy out here. Put it there. Go to details with your static mesh selected and transform. Let's just set it to 0, 0, 0. There we go. So that'll put it at the origin. And then let's change the scale. Let's do it right this way. So if you didn't know, so you can hit W, E, and R to change the mode. So W is transformation, right? And then E is rotation, and R is scaling. So hit R, or you can select that up here at the top of the viewport. So let's scale it somewhat that way, and then let's also drag it out this way. Yeah, maybe a little more. There we go. Okay, so I decided to do this because this box will already have collision, so we don't have to bother like generating a collision for it. So let's do that, and actually let's go ahead and let's Alt, so E, and then Alt rotate, and let's just rotate it by 90 degrees, and then we will select that one, hit W, and Alt drag, and we'll just make a second wall there on the other side. And then let's do, let's go back to hit E for rotation, Alt rotate. Doesn't need to be that long, so let's maybe scale it down a little bit with hit R. And let's just scale it that way. And then W, Alt drag again. And there we go. Now we have an enclosed space. That's kind of what we want. So one thing to keep in mind as you're editing, you probably want to have a reference actor in your environment, because you want the scale as you're building things. Scale isn't going to be lifelike. It's not going to be one-to-one, but you want it to feel realistic or feel accurate for the design of your game, right? So what I would do is let's disable our static mesh filter, and let's just go to stealth game, characters, and player character. Actually, let's just put our AI in there, right? So go to enemies, drag our BP enemy in there, and then you can hit F to to focus on that actor that you just placed, or the selected actor. And there we go. So now he's in there. We can kind of see now like how big the room is in comparison to the characters that are going to be in the environment. So that's helpful to have, right? So that'll be our reference. Well, let's just put him there, and then let's go ahead and let's see if it works, right? Let's see if he moves towards us. Let's start behind him. That way he can't see us. Okay. Oh, I always forget, right? We created a new level. We need to set the game mode for this level, right? So go to world settings. We'll go game mode override, and we'll set that to our third person mode custom, or game mode custom. And that will assign the character that we're going to play with and a couple of other settings there. So now we can hit play and we drop in. Okay, so let's see if he does anything. He does not, right? Feel free to, you can post in the Discord to why you think that's the case, but I'm going to answer it right now after a short pause. All right. So if you looked at the outline, we mentioned one thing in there, right, for today's topics. We mentioned the navigation bounds volume. And so for when you're setting up AI, all of the AI move to and any of those tasks or events, these nodes here, these require a nav mesh volume to be in your environment, because that's what the AI system is using to outline or determine the environment and the places that the AI can move to or move in. So we didn't place one of those, so let's go ahead and do that. Another thing to mention is, as we're doing that, the actor implementation that I did doesn't require a nav mesh volume because it's not using the navigation or the path system. So let's hit our drop down here. What do we want? Oh, we want volumes. We want nav mesh bounds volume. But let's just in the search bar, let's search nav mesh. I guess nav space mesh. And there it is. So let's drag one of those guys in here. What you want to do is have this fill in whatever space you want the enemy AI to be able to move into. So let's hit R. We're going to scale this all the way up, and let's try to center that a little bit. Just scale that. Yeah, that's not bad. Maybe a little more. There we go. We don't want them to necessarily collide with the walls in this case, so I'll keep it short of the walls. But you can also you can encapsulate the entire level if that's what you want to do. But ideally, you want to have control over where the AI can go. Yeah, it looks pretty good. Let's leave it at that. I might scale it up in Z a little bit in case. So if you have a second level, you might want the AI to be able to move up there. And as a matter of fact, let's just throw something in there real quick. Let's go to static mesh, or turn our static mesh filter on. Go to content. Where's our ramp? Here we go. Let's drag a ramp in, like we had in the other environment. Okay, let's rotate that. And let's just scale that a little bit. There we go. And let's make it a little steeper. A bit taller there. There we go. Okay. And then we'll just drag another, let's just drag another box in. Where'd my box go? There we go. Just try to align this here as best as possible. Doesn't need to be perfect in this case. One thing to note as you're working is the snapping capability. So these options up here determine how objects you place, scale, and rotate will snap. So if you want to enable or disable snapping, you can check these boxes. There's a drop down here to set like the size of the snap. So if you want it to be very fine versus or snap to very large spaces, you can do that. I'm going to leave it as is for now because that's not the focus here, but something to keep in mind as you're working. Okay, let's just scale it up some. That'll work. And then let's just scale that out. And let's switch to rotation, Alt drag, create another one, and then let's just hold Control and hold Shift and drag, and we'll just let go of the left mouse, click, and then let's scale a little bit. Oop, not like that, just and Y. There we go. Okay, nice. Now we have a top level that we can kind of go up onto. So, all right, our nav mesh balance volume is there now. Let's hit Control Shift S to save everything, and then let's jump into the level. Let's hit play, and there we go. All right, the AI is chasing us, but you notice that it's in just a T pose or an A pose, right? Doesn't have any animations applied. That looks kind of wonky. So let's fix that next. But we got the foundation right now. Our AI can chase us. So that's a good start. Let's stop playing, and let's take a quick side quest. Now we're gonna mess around with some animation stuff. So Control Space to bring it to Content Browser. Disable the static mesh filter. Let's go into Stealth Game, and let's go back to Characters, Enemies, and in here, I think probably I will move these into a subfolder later, but for now let's just do it here. Right click, and we're gonna go to Animation, and let's select Blend Space right here. And I think we want the first one. Yeah, the other one is the old mannequin. So the first one is for the skeleton for the Manny character. So for UE5, right? So for blend space, the naming convention is BS. Let's do underscore. Let's call it enemy AI underscore walk run. For now. And then let's double click that blend space, bring that up. Okay, so if you look in here, we have this graph view here, and on the left hand side we have a bunch of settings. So what you're gonna do is these on the right hand side you have your asset browser, which shows animations that are associated with the skeleton that you're working on for this blend space. And you can view that by going to these icons over here, or these tool buttons here. So this first one will actually take you to the skeleton asset. So if you click that, there we go. So it'll open up the skeleton, and you can view the bones and everything. And then you can actually view the skeletal mesh by clicking that one. That'll open up the skeletal mesh. So pretty useful. It's kind of a quick way to navigate as you're going through. This takes us back to the asset we were working on. So let's go back there. And then what we're going to do is we're going to use the, I think we want the MM ones. Well, it doesn't make that much of a difference, but since we're using the female one, I think let's do the MF actually. Yeah. Okay. So filter for MF. So you see here, there's three running animations or movement animations. So we have our idle, we have our run forward, and we have a walk forward. So what we're going to do is we're going to blend these animations together. Unreal Engine makes this super easy, because all you need to do is you're going to drag these animations into our graph, and then we're going to specify some values to set for the speed of the character, and Unreal Engine will then do a calculation to determine how to blend the animations based off of that speed. As this gets more complex, you have two axes here, right? So you can do direction and speed if you wanted to. So you could have multiple degrees of freedom, right, or of movement. So you can be moving to the side at different speeds, or back and forward, that type of stuff. But in our case, we're just going to use the horizontal axis. So if you look at the left-hand side, we'll go to Axis Settings and Horizontal Axis. let's call this, let's just call it speed. And I'll keep it simple. Minimum axis value will be 0. We'll keep that at 0. But let's change the max value to, let's do 400 or something like that. I think the character's movement right now, the walk speed right now is 500. And I want to be able to run a little bit faster. But we'll tweak these as we go through, though. As you're experimenting, tweak them so that it fits the design of your game, right? We'll leave grid divisions at 4 for now. That'll be fine. Okay, so let's just drag these guys in here, right? So we'll take MF idle. We'll drag that in here, and we'll place it. So you see you can put this anywhere in the graph. I think if snapping is on, oh, it just shows triangulation. Well, in any case, what we'll do is we want to set this to 0, right? And our none axis is we don't have any y axis, but we'll just set that to 0 as well. So right now we just have one animation, so it's just going to show our idle. But what happens if we put our walk forward in here? Let's set it at the bottom there as well. Actually, you know what? Let's put it in the middle because it's kind of annoying having it down at the bottom. It's kind of hard to follow. So let's set these both. Let's set our y axis to 50, even though it means nothing because we're not using it. And let's set this to 50. Okay. And then actually, let's go back to our second. What did I just do? There we go. Okay, let's go back to this one. And let's set the speed to 300. That'll be, oh, I'm sorry. Let's do halfway, and I set it to our maximum axis value to 400. So let's do 200. So you can adjust this right as you go. You might want walking a little further to the left, closer to your idle. But let's do it halfway for now and see what that looks like, and we can tweak it. As you're working in this graph, if you hold down Control, you can see it's moving this little green X around. So that'll set the viewport, the example that you're viewing there. So hold down Control and just move your mouse around, and that'll change the speed that you're at and show like what that will look like as the animation blends. So let's drop our last one in real quick. Take run forward. Drop that at 50, and then we'll set the value to 400. There you go. Oh, did you select the wrong one? Our walk speed. Oh, yeah, I selected the wrong one. We want our walk forward to be 200. Keep that there. And then we want our run forward to be 400. And at 50. There we go. All right, so all on one line. Now I just hold down Control, and you can see as Unreal Engine's just blending those animations together nice and smoothly. It's pretty awesome. So nothing as we move up and down because there's nothing there, right? Actually, you know what? I think I will. Let's move this back a little bit because that leaves a huge gap to blend. Let's try like 100. See what that looks like. I mean, ideally, what we'll do is, you know what? Let's leave it as is. I think that's okay. Ideally, you know, you'll adjust this running speed, but I think we'll just leave it like that for now. That's okay. Okay, so this is our blend space. We have that. Hit save. Now we need to do one more thing. So we need to set up an animation blueprint to tell when to use that blend space, right? Or tell it how to set the animation. So go back to the content browser. Let's right click. We'll go to animation blueprint. And then again, we'll select our SK mannequin skeleton. Oh, actually, before we do that, what we can do, I think, can we do this here? No, I guess we can't do that here. We need to do it on the skeleton itself. So, okay, that's fine. Let's just right click here. I'll do animation blueprint, select our SK mannequin. There's no templates, so hit create, and let's call this ABP, ABP underscore enemy AI. ABP for animation blueprint. Okay, double click, open that up. So in here, we're going to do something super basic, but if you look at the top here, we have an event graph and we have an anim graph. The anim graph is where you're going to actually put the states that the character is going to be going into. So if you can get pretty complex in here. So you could have an idle walk state or an idle state and a walk state. You could have your combat state on your long range or your short range or your melee kind of states and things like that. But in our case, we're just going to take our blunt space, our enemy AI walk run. We're just going to drop that in here, attach it. Oh, did I not remove our... I guess I can just leave it like that, though. It doesn't make much of a difference. Yeah. Okay, so you notice that it has these two values here. So these are the axes, whatever, for our blunt space. So let's drag off a speed and promote to variable. And then as this variable gets set, it'll determine the speed that this character is moving at. Let's go ahead and go to our event graph. And you see we already have this event blueprint update animation. So we're going to just use that. We're going to do try get pawn owner. Or it has both of these already, right? So it has this try get pawn owner. So this is whoever this animation blueprint is assigned to, right? So we have our repeat enemy AI. We're going to assign this blueprint to that character or to that skeletal mesh within the character blueprint. And so we'll do this getter, and then we'll use that to determine our speed, right? So how are we going to do that? Real quick, let's go ahead and I think we can get the character movement off of this. Let's try that. Get movement component, maybe. Maybe not. Oh, there it is. Okay. Thought so. So get movement component. And again, there's a couple of ways you can do this, but I'm gonna do it this way. Get movement component. The other option would be to cast to our character, our enemy AI, and get the character movement component, and then access it that way. But let's do it this way. I think we want to get velocity. Yeah, there we go. So velocity is the that direction and magnitude, right? So it's a vector. We just want the speed, right? Just the speed, not we don't need the direction of that speed. Although if you could use that again if you were moving in multiple directions. So from that, all we want is the length of that vector. That'll give us the magnitude. Right? I think. Something like that. Okay, so we will use that. Let's grab our speed. And we'll do the setter. Let's attach this here. And let's attach our vector length to our speed and hit compile. And now you see that it's in the idle state because this value is 0. This is actually going to be determined based off of the max walk speed for the character. We're not going to do any manipulation to the speed. We're just going to, and the AI controller is really just going to use one speed as it moves. But you could control and adjust the speed depending on if it's patrolling or chasing or whatever else. But in our case, it's just gonna be chasing the entire time or not moving. So idle or chase. So let's. I hit save already. We attached it in our anim graph already. One thing you can do is you can adjust the values in the preview editor. So on the right hand side, there's the asset browser. There's also this anim preview editor. And these are our values that we can adjust in here. So if I set this to 200, let's see if it'll update. It did not update. I don't think I need to apply it though. Yeah, that'll be to the defaults. Okay. Move. Oops. Do you want to do 400? Okay. Well, I guess he's not going to do what I want him to do. That's fine. Well, let's see if we have something broken, actually. Let's go ahead and go over to our VP enemy AI. Make sure. We'll go to our mesh. And earlier, we assigned the skeletal mesh, but we did not assign the animation. So under animation, we'll go leave the animation mode to blueprint, and then the anim class, let's use our enemy AI blueprint, our animation blueprint. Okay, we'll hit compile, and then if you go to the viewport now, it's no longer in an A pose, which is what we want. Right? We want to start out in that idle state. So let's select class defaults real quick, and I just want to check. Actually, character movement is what I want. Let's go to character movement. Search max walk speed. Okay, so right now it's 600. Let's set it to 400. Let's just have it at the max. Yeah, I can leave the crouch speed because we're not going to do crouching, but let's set it at the max of our blend space, right? We set it between 0 and 400, I think. So we'll do that, and let's see if it actually picks up our animation now. It's looking hopeful because it's no longer in that A pose, but let's see if there we go. Okay, so it is working. I'm not sure why I wasn't showing the animation blueprint. I may have missed something, but one thing, let's quit play real quick. If you hit P, you see the green show up. So that is debug for our nav mesh. This is showing where the AI can move to. So if you notice, I scaled up that nav mesh volume so that we could again access this top level. So now the AI can move up here as well. So let's jump back in and play. And I think you can actually debug. Yeah, hit P while you're playing an editor as well. And he keeps stopping because when he catches us, he doesn't have a state for that. Let's keep moving. Let's go up here. Let's see if he'll chase us up here. Yeah, there we go. So you notice that the AI can move up here as well. Very cool. Okay, and he'll jump down too. There we go. All right, so that sums it up, right? Now we have our animations applied, and we have a very, very simple enemy AI that will chase us around. It doesn't do a whole lot else, but we can expand on this, right? So we could have this sense us by hearing or by sight. We could have it attack us when it reaches us, or we can have it, keep its distance and do a long range attack. We can have it run away because it's scared of us. There's a lot of things we could do to improve on this, including the animations. Again, we're only using the maximum value, so it's always going to be chasing us or running at us. Just for the heck of it, let's see what it looks like if it's only walking. That'll be pretty silly. It'd be like the slug, or no, the snail thing where if the snail is chasing you around the world, you have to, if it gets you, you die, but if you don't know where it's at, but it's always chasing you or whatever. Anyways, moving at a slow speed is what I'm getting at. Okay, let's see what it looks like. Yeah, it looks kind of silly, right? Just kind of walking at us. If you notice that the movement's not very accurate because we could put it at a weird value. Those speed values are going to be dependent on the animation itself. So if you notice the feet are kind of dragging, so it's not really accurate for the animation, but it works for what I'm trying to show. It's kind of weird having kind of walk around. But you might have a slow boss or something that kind of moves around really slow, so it might chase us at a slow speed like that. Or if you're making a horror game, you might have them move at a very slow speed but chase the player like that. So, all right. So that about sums up what I wanted to show for today. Next week, we'll probably touch on some mechanics, kind of like what I was talking about earlier. Ideally, if you have some ideas or things that you want to see, please share those in Discord. I was gonna do a discussion, but I think it'll be fine to do it through Discord, and we'll just kind of talk it out and see what makes the most sense. Right now, I'm planning on doing patrolling as our next step, but we'll see what makes the most sense, and if we have questions about the stealth game assignment or things like that, we can delve into those things and maybe do some experimenting. So thanks for watching, and feel free to leave any questions and things like that.